Well, I do have one question. When we decided the change from this report, from the previous report with respect to the employment numbers, is that we basically took the Howie's, what I call the Howie's lot, and we dropped it out of our calculations for up to 2020 and placed it in the next bucket from 2020 to 2035.
Correct.
And was there any particular economic fact or model or anything that we can point to for that decision, that difference between the previous staff report and this one, or is it just let's shift things around in the buckets?
It was a reasonable assumption made by staff that a large project such as this would not likely occur in the next few years, and we felt that that there is one other larger project, and that's the project across City Hall, which is the old skilled nursing site that would potentially have a project within the next 11 years. So it really was a reasonable assumption, and also based on the current and near future economy, that a large project such as that in that scale would not occur. And so therefore we felt that those numbers could be then taken out of that within the next 11 years.
Well, the reason I'm asking that question is the current and near future economy. For the next 3 years, we're telling people that, well, we're going to have no new homes, net anyway, not zero, because the economy's bad. And thereafter, the economy will pick up enough that we can come up with 72 units.
Based on,
we might come up with 72 units based on
and it's based
the
on
3
average.
years that existed before the 3 we just looked at. And then at the same time, we're saying, however, the economy will not pick up really that much during that time, such that nobody's actually going to ever want to do anything with that lot over at Howie's. And we're putting out a document now that is effectively maybe telling the world, well, I don't know if the world's that interested, but telling a lot of people anyway, that the Howie's lot is going to sit there dead, as it is now, for 10 to 25 more years. That's what we're telling everybody, is our projection for the economic vitality of our community. And that's based on something other than we just want to keep the number low? I understand that S.C.A.G's number was, as everybody rightly pointed out, not right. It was just did not reflect the facts on the ground, and I am glad that people up here pushed that number down. What I am concerned is that we don't be sending the letters out to folks saying that, making statements about our community that I'm not sure we can entirely back up, or back up in a credible way. And what that worries me, it causes me to worry more, is that S.C.A.G ends up adopting their number because they find no credibility in ours. Now, with the housing numbers, I could probably, the numbers that you came up with for housing, even though I'm not sure of the methodology that says we had net zero for the last 3 years. So we think it's going to be net zero for the next 3 years, even though we just approved another lot tonight, and even though we've got four demolitions, which I assume people are going to replace, and even though we know a number of other projects that are going to be out there in the future that aren't, I think, 10 years down the road. But okay.
But demolition replacements are net zero.
Yeah, well, they're net zero they're net zero based on permits. When you're averaging out permits, we're going to be issuing new permits for those demolitions. They're not a net zero for the next year, because we've done this on a year-by-year analysis. We've talked about the number of permits issued each year to do this analysis.
Then they use the average. They look at it year by year, and then they use the average.
Well, they might do that, but we're talking about what our projection is based on a year-by-year analysis. And so what I'm saying is that net zero from 4 demolitions will be offset maybe in another year by a positive 4 from people replacing demolished properties. So is it a net zero? No, it's based on the net zero that we have, that's adding 4 more. But that's one way, or I'm not sure S.C.A.G's method was any much better, as I think maybe the point. But the problem I have is we're just saying that 0 for the last 3, so 0 for the next 3, and that projects out to 72 over 10.
Well,
And
no,
I'm
because
not-
then they go back to the average of 4, which is over a longer period of time. And that's based on the actuals that we have, that are the CMP numbers that we submit. I mean, at least there's a basis for coming up with these numbers. It's not just a pie in the sky. And when we're projecting out 10 and 25 years, it's a pie in the sky anyway. But, so the best that we
Well,
can do is
I
come up
agree.
with,
But
come up with an actual number, which are the CMP numbers that we've submitted. And so by looking at the fact that the years 7, 8, and 9 have been a net zero, and because of the economy and the permit process and everything that's involved in getting anything else going, it's likely the next 3 years might be a net zero, even though there might be some demolitions. And then after that, they're going back and taking a bigger chunk of years, a 6 to 8 year period of time where the average was 4, and they're taking the remainder of the 8 years and multiplying them by the 4 and coming up with the 72. I'm not even sure we're going to make that, but at least there's a reality to the calculation, so that if we have to defend it to S.C.A.G, we can defend it to S.C.A.G. We're not just pulling out numbers to meet some large RTP number out there. We're looking at this community, the permits that have been pulled, the demolitions, the CMP numbers we've submitted, and there's actuality to the numbers. I think
Well, but that isn't actually the calculation that was made, is my point. When we came up with the 4 and the 5, four single-family residences and 5 multifamily residences per year for the years succeeding the 3 where we project 0. That number is based on a number that was calculated from the 3 years prior to the 3 years that came out to be a net 0. We looked at the average for those 3 years and said that that's the average that's going to apply going forward. If you actually took the entire 6-year period, you might even come up with a number that's
where they got the 4.
Is different. And no, but I mean, we did do that. We just replugged in the number on the back end that we'd had, 3 years ago, but not for the last 3 years. All I'm saying is I'm not, this methodology may be just, the best we can do, and I do appreciate staff's effort to work this and rework this. I think the working and the reworking, though, has may create an unfortunate suspicion about the letter we're going to send. And that's, I think, leaves me a little bit uncomfortable about this. But the housing numbers, you're right. I can accept the housing numbers, even if I think I can probably identify a number of projects that's in everybody's mind that'll make that 72 on its own, and then the assumption is that nothing new will actually occur beyond that, and that's probably not realistic. But be that as it may, I think the bigger problem I have is the way we've projected the employment numbers is, I think, an unfortunate statement that we ought not to be making about that, because frankly, if we looked at what the number of people who are employed at the skilled nursing facility, it would make our employment number, that number alone, I think if we got it accurate, and I was asked and I heard it was something like 2 to 3 employees per bed, or something. That number alone throws our employment numbers off if we just reintroduce a skilled nursing facility across the street. So we're introducing employment numbers that don't even contemplate that level of economic growth in this town.
But that's a very big if, because we are contending with Measure V, we're contending with a difficult economy. The site has been empty for quite a very long time.
But this is a 10-year projection, not a 2-year projection.
Exactly.
That's my point.
Look back. We can look back how many years? 6, 7, 8? It's been vacant. Doesn't, when you look forward, what's going to change that's going to make it fill? We're safer being conservative in this respect than we are being optimistic, in which case we are then saddled with numbers that we are forced to live with that then change the fabric of the community. We are, I think, doing this community a bigger service by being conservative and trying to retain the fabric of the community than being overly optimistic and assuming that we can do some things we may not, which will then forever change what we're expected to do by S.C.A.G.